Welcome everyone to the 5 Pillars of Ecstatic Birth Masterclass. So this presentation is primarily for birth workers. So at whatever phase if you support a woman in the rite of passage from fertility to pregnancy to labor and delivery, postpartum, this presentation is for you. We're going to talk about how do we show up fully for our clients? How can we support them with best outcomes, especially now, even during a pandemic? How do we hold that really, really high bar for our clients so that they can have the birth outcomes that they deserve? So the 5 Pillars of Ecstatic Birth is going to give you 5 mindset shift strategies. We'll talk about some practices to really support you in holding that tone for highest outcomes for your clients. So now if you're an expectant mom and you're listening, you're more than welcome to listen along. I just want you to be aware that this is really geared towards birth workers. Now, for anyone that's listening, all the information that I'm going to be sharing with you today on the 5 Pillars of Ecstatic Birth, I invite you to try on for yourself in your life, pregnant or not, working in birth or not. These 5 pillars are really, and you'll start to see they're sort of empowerment tools, personal growth strategies, tools of body wisdom and sexuality and feminine power. So really they're relevant to everyone, but this conversation is really geared towards right now, how can we support our clients as birth workers to have the best possible outcomes in birth? How can we support them? We all know we're doing this work because we hold that highest vision for childbirth. We're drawn to holding space for that. We're drawn to be a source of support for that. And, things are a little wonky now. Let's be real, things are a little bit wonky with the coronavirus and women having to labor with masks if they're going into a hospital, or perhaps having their doula support them virtually. So it's especially important now when we're in a culture of tremendous fear and anxiety to be able to hold the tone for ourselves and our bodies so we can hold that tone for our clients for the highest possible outcomes and for that vision of birth that we know is possible. And I want to begin by saying that we can do this. I have practitioners in my training program right now that are doing this, that are supporting their clients virtually, that are supporting their clients to connect to their body wisdom, to their feminine wisdom, and they're having beautiful, amazing birth experiences that are super sacred, as birth often is. So I want to begin just by telling you a little bit about myself if you don't know who I am. Again, I'm Sheila Kumar Hay, founder of Ecstatic Birth. And this work really is so personal to me because it began with my own journey. It began with a journey of being pregnant for the first time and really loving, feeling the feminine wisdom alive in my body. My body just knew what to do without me having to consciously give it any, input. I was gestating life and I was amazed by this, and I wanted to feel that in my birth. And I didn't have, a family that had a legacy of natural birth or empowering birth. I didn't live in a community where that was something available to me. That was the seed that arose from within myself. And because I didn't have the training, the structures of support, the knowledge, the wherewithal, that birth was a very disempowering experience. And I would say it was much closer to traumatic than ecstatic. And that started me on a whole journey of, I could not even get pregnant again until I healed my relationship with my body and really understood. This was a huge journey for me, really understood what had happened. And once I healed that and got in touch with my own inner wisdom, as opposed to, running from doctor to doctor to doctor, which I did for a while, because I literally could not get pregnant again, had a series of losses. So in healing that, and having my second birth, which was like a reclamatory experience, it was beautiful. It was Zen-like. I labored in water, and I had an amazing midwife, an amazing doula. We were at a birthing center. And in that moment, everything that I had heard about what was possible became real for me. And so for my third birth, I thought to myself, I know I can do this. I know my body's physically capable of this. I want to see if I can enjoy it. And that's where I put my attention in preparing for my third birth, really put my attention on like, what does it mean? Not just to enjoy the baby in my arms after and the achievement of having had a natural birth experience, but what does it mean to actually enjoy labor and delivery? Is it actually possible to enjoy like contractions? Is it actually possible to enjoy the waves of intensity? What I experienced in my third birth took me higher than I've ever been in my entire life and left me feeling like a little bit heartbroken, because even though I had prepared for pleasure, even though I had really educated myself and trained in all these different ways to have a pleasurable birth experience, what I actually experienced transcended my conception of what I thought was possible. And I remember saying to my husband after, I don't understand, like, why didn't I know? Why didn't I know what was possible? And why doesn't every woman know? And that began, my self-declared career as an ecstatic birth advocate. I started sharing what I had learned, what I had experienced, how I had prepared in blogs and writing with friends, with family. It became a very informal thing. Call Sheila if you're pregnant. And then that turned into a formal thing of providing support to pregnant moms and introducing my teachers, introducing like all the wisdom that I had taken in, sharing that with the women that I worked with. And there was this moment where I kept seeing practitioners signing up for my programs, again, doulas, midwives, OBs, childbirth educators, and it confused the heck out of me, right? Because I wasn't certified in any of these things. And I thought, I started asking them, why are you here? Why are you signing up for my programs? Don't you get this in your trainings? Don't you get this in your professional certifications? And I was told overwhelmingly, no, we don't get this. And we want this, and we want to be able to share this with our clients. And so in that moment, I realized that if I actually want to get this out there in a big way, if I actually want to be effective in transforming the culture of birth, I have to share this with birth practitioners. And so from that point, this was about 5 years ago now, the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training was born. Began as a 6-month program. It has expanded over the years, gone deeper. It's now a 1-year program. And in that training, I show birth practitioners first how to embody the tools of pleasure for themselves so they can really connect to their bodies. They can hold that tone for ecstasy in their own bodies. They can open and expand their own pleasure pathways so that they can then bring it to their clients. And we talk about all kinds of tools, pleasure tools for labor and delivery. And we're going to go into that in the 5 pillars of ecstatic birth presentation today. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background, who I am, what I do. I've had a ton of training both in the birth community as well as sexual education, sensual expansion. I have trained with some truly incredible, amazing teachers. I will show you who they are in this presentation as well. So let's get started. I'm going to do a screen share here, and we're going to dive into the 5 pillars of ecstatic birth. So I really encourage you, if you're able, turn off your phones, get a pen and paper. It's shown that you retain things better when you do take notes. If you're a note taker, go for it. And just shut off all distractions, because I'm really going to be giving you a lot of information, a lot of content, a lot of transmissions and points of inspiration. And I want you to be able to fully receive that. And at the end of the presentation, I'm also going to share with you how you can go deeper and talk a little bit more about the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training, as well as offering you some welcome. So I believe that childbirth can be one of the most empowering, transformative, and potentially pleasurable events in a woman's life. So this is a pretty radical statement in a world, society, culture globally that believes that childbirth is something that women need to be rescued from. And I don't say that lightly. I think that when you really look at our structures and our systems and our modes of support, the idea is like, okay, let's swoop in and rescue you from this really intense experience. Childbirth is treated as an emergency, and in some cases it can be an emergency, but in the vast majority of cases it is a normal physiological, biological process. I know you know this, but I really want to plant that seed for like, it can not only be empowering, it can not only be transformative, but it can also be one of the most pleasurable events in a woman's life. So this is me. I already told you a whole lot about myself. And here are some of my mentors and colleagues. Dr. Christiane Northrup is the woman that really helped me get started in ecstatic birth. It was in the living room of Regina Thomasschauer, this beautiful woman in the middle, also known as Mama Gina, that I was on my healing journey after having seen all these doctors and natural healers, and everyone said to me, Sheila, there's nothing wrong with you. You've just had a string of bad luck. So 3 miscarriages, 1 pregnancy that I had to terminate because the child had a fatal birth defect. And I was told, Sheila, you just have a lot of bad luck. So it was in Regina Thomasschauer's living room that I met Dr. Christiane Northrup, and I got to know about her work, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, which, by the way, she has a new edition out now. If you have not been exposed to that transformative and like really seminal book, I really encourage you to check out Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. So between these 2 women, I really learned that my body has wisdom, that it was not defunct, it was not, non-functional, there was nothing wrong with me, but that actually it was working in my favor. So my body has wisdom, my pussy has a voice. That's a big part of Mama Gina's work, is reclaiming the sexual, the sensual, the feminine, and with that, the word pussy. She has a New York Times bestselling book called Pussy, a Reclamation. So I learned that my pussy has a voice. And when I asked her, what's wrong with me? She said, I'm not ready to have another baby. I'm still healing from the first. And this was like, what? Because my whole life, I had been functioning from up here, right? I'd been functioning from this headspace of, all right, what do I need to do now? Now I need to do this. And I'm a Yale educated, Columbia educated cultural sociologist. So really like love learning, love academia, had really spent the vast majority of my life in my head. And so this was news to me, because all this time my head was saying, have another baby, you need to have another baby because your first is almost a year old, and you and your brother had 9 years apart, and that was very lonely growing up without a sibling close to you in age, and so you need to have another baby. That was my head speaking. But my body said, I'm not ready to have another baby, I'm still healing from the first. And that was okay. It took me into a different space. It took me into a different relationship. And you know what? When my body told me she was ready, I did get pregnant, no problem. And had a very healthy pregnancy. And that was really the seed that has now become a pivotal piece of my life's work, which is connecting women to their bodies, to their wisdom, so that it can guide them in childbirth, but also in everyday life, and also in motherhood, and all these different ways. So the other woman here is Deborah Pascali-Bonara, who's a dear friend and colleague. She is the director and co-author of Orgasmic Birth. And when I had my incredible ecstatic birth experience, and I was kind of screaming it from the rooftops, it was the same time that she was putting out her documentary. And so Dr. Christiane Northrup put me in touch with her, and I supported her a little bit with that, with some writing, and that began like a friendship, which continues to this day. I like to call her my co-conspirator in spreading the word about pleasurable birth. So these are some of my beloved mentors and colleagues. So as a prenatal and birth practitioner, I really want to honor you and how important you are to your clients. Each of you has a powerful opportunity to raise consciousness and empower an expectant mom through this transformative rite of passage in ways that could dramatically alter her experience of birth. You can empower each woman you work with to enjoy the journey of labor and delivery rather than simply endure it. So as a support person, like your tone, how you feel, how you show up, how you hold space is really, really important to your clients. I know you know that. But how many of us, including mothers, are taught to just give, and disregard our own bodies, right? And I think that birth practitioners, we're essentially mothering the mothers. And so we tend to fall into that tendency of over-nourishing, over-giving, over having our energy go outward without enough coming in. And I'm really seeing a ton of depletion, like in the birth community, a ton of that. And that's not really a place from which you can hold space for the highest outcome. I want each of you to be able to hold in your bodies that like pulsing ecstatic energy, so that that's the energy you bring to your clients, so that that's the energy you bring into the birthing room. So today we're going to talk about the 5 pillars of ecstatic birth that can support you. So each of these pillars you can apply to your clients, you can bring, into your sessions with them, into the birthing room with you. But first, as we're moving through this, I really want you to take this in for yourself, because you'll see how it flows both ways. This is for you, this is for your body, this is for your highest expression and vibrance, and it is also for holding that space for that of your clients. And there's also a 6th pillar of ecstatic birth, which I will be sharing as well. I realized after I created this presentation, I'm excited to share that with you as well. So I'm going to give you a bonus, a bonus pillar as well today. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? We all know that you can't guarantee any outcomes, not in life, not in birth. You can hold space, you can desire, you can prepare yourself, you can actively train, you can do everything you can do to have the experience that you want to have, but you can't actually guarantee any outcome in childbirth. And I think this is part of why our systems tend to overmanage childbirth. It's like a deep desire to manage that which is unmanageable. So is it even possible to promise an ecstatic birth outcome to our clients? Let's talk about this. All right, so the first pillar that I'm going to share with you today is this idea of disconnecting ecstasy from outcome. So you can teach ecstatic birth, you can hold space for ecstatic birth, you can, be an advocate for ecstatic birth, but what you're doing is you're not actually talking about a birth that looks a certain way. I have people ask me all the time, is ecstatic birth a water birth? Is ecstatic birth a home birth? Can you only have an ecstatic birth with a midwife? And the answer is like, an ecstatic birth can look however you want it to look. So if I was going to say to you, when was the last time that you experienced ecstasy in your life? Just like pause for a moment and think about it, really call that moment into your mind, the last time that you experienced ecstasy. So if we were all sitting together in a room in a circle and we all went around person to person, you would probably have a pretty wide range of experiences. Some of it might be in the bedroom, some of it might be in nature, some of it might be on a trip, some of it might be at like a momentous occasion, like a wedding or a birth, right? So ecstasy is not tied to a specific circumstance. Ecstasy is a feeling, right? So if I started to say to you, what did it feel like when you had this ecstatic experience? Then we would start to find some commonalities. So while we cannot guarantee a specific outcome to our clients, what we can support them with is that connection to their feeling space. We want our clients to walk out of their births with their heads held high, right? They're entering this new realm of their life, motherhood. We want them to walk into that feeling transformed, empowered, activated, strong, right? We don't want them to feel victimized, traumatized, disconnected, depleted. So the key to this is to talk about ecstatic birth as an ideal, something to be inspired by. All ideals are points of inspiration, right? We never know what we're actually going to get. But when you aspire towards an ideal, you're already elevating. So just holding that vision, holding that tone, you're already elevating your clients' experiences, and then putting the emphasis on their feeling space rather than circumstance is really where the power is at. And the way you do that is we don't talk about right choices in ecstatic birth. There is no right or wrong way to give birth. For some women, the right way is 1000% a C-section. A C-section can be a life-saving procedure in certain cases, and for that we are so grateful. So there's no such thing as a right way to give birth. There's only the right way for you. And how do you know what the right way is for you? By being deeply connected to your feeling space. So this is really a fundamental pillar of ecstatic birth. We cannot control birth outcomes, but we can elevate the experience of childbirth for our clients and ourselves. The key is to activate and lean on our feeling sense rather than our thinking sense. And that is about bringing us into our bodies, connecting us to our body's wisdom, connecting to the language of the body, which is sensation, and following that. All right, this is Samara Concepcion. She graduated from the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training last year. And she says, I'm no longer seeing women as victims in the labor wards. That is huge for me. I'm understanding that all I need to do is embody the alternative I believe in, and that can only be pleasurable. This training is also encouraging me to pleasure the other aspects of myself, not just the doula and the creator, but the creator and the mover, which I'm so thankful for. So here she's really speaking to like the tone that we hold, right? A lot of times as birth workers, we do want to rescue our clients. We see them in a situation that should not be, or could be better in some way, and we want to swoop in and rescue them. And so a big part of this work for us as birth workers is really being able to not see women as victims in the labor wards, to really be able to hold space for their own grounding, their own activation. And I think this is more true right now in this moment in time than ever before, because there is, there are some limitations as opposed to whether or not a birthing mom can have her doula there with her. There's a lot of fear and anxiety. So it becomes really important, rather than having our birthing moms rely on our presence to save them, to really give them tools and trainings and practices to help them ground deep, reach deep, and connect to that fierce feminine wisdom. That's what's really, really key. And that's always been true. But I think this pandemic is really bringing that to the forefront. So how do we turn the focus of birth preparation and support from pain management to joy, pleasure, and even ecstasy? Pillar 2, birth is a sexual act. So that's a statement that took me a long time to be able to say out loud, and a few years longer to be able to say without like inwardly cringing. Birth is a sexual act. When we understand that birth is not separate and distinct from our sexuality, but it's actually the culmination of our sexuality, right? We use our sexuality to conceive the baby, gestate the baby, and also to birth the baby. So birth is the culmination of our sexuality. When we understand that, it transforms everything. Why? Okay, if I was to say to you, have you ever had a sexual experience that felt amazing, ecstatic, or even orgasmic, right? Most women can understand that that possibility exists. Have you ever had a sexual experience that really hurt or didn't feel good, or was painful, or maybe even traumatic? Most women can understand how that can be true, right? In the same body of the same woman, you can understand how the same act can be highly pleasurable or highly painful. And what's the difference? The difference is whether or not you're honoring the body and honoring the body's processes. This is true in birth. So this is something we really need to raise consciousness about, that birth is a sexual act, really help women integrate that. And once they integrate that, then it's all about like honoring the body and its processes. How can you honor your sexual body even in the birthing room? What are the conditions that help you feel safe, that help you open, that enable you to surrender to the ecstatic and orgasmic pleasure that's available to you? Bring those into birth. And the final piece is, in sexuality in general, like it's a learnable skill. Like you can prepare for pleasure, you can train for pleasure, you can learn to have orgasms, you can learn to have multiple orgasms, you can learn how to have an expanded orgasm. So you can actually train for pleasure in birth as well. And this is a big piece also of ecstatic birth preparation. first for us as birth workers to learn these tools for ourselves, to really embody these tools for ourselves, and then to bring it out to our clients. The intensity of sensation in childbirth can manifest as pain or pleasure, rather than focusing on reducing pain, which is what the vast majority of, childbirth support is about. Let's focus on increasing the pleasure. The key here is to study the underlying physiology in the body and the interconnected nature of our birthing and sexual body to honor its processes. So this is really big. And in the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training, one of the incredible teachers that we hear from is Sherry Winston, who's a midwife turned award-winning sexual educator. She has an amazing, amazing book called Women's Anatomy of Arousal, where you can really see that interconnected nature of our birthing and sexual bodies. So we dive deep into that. This is Catherine Stewart-Lindsay. She says, Sheila stands at a threshold, inviting us into our deepest pleasure. Catherine was actually in my first Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training years ago. She's a very successful labor doula in New York City. So she says, our work together has taken me into a place of ever deepening relaxation, of being in and feeling real pleasure. As a woman, I'm profoundly grateful for the opportunity to share in this exploration. As a doula, this work goes even deeper for me. I end up talking about pain, or rather people talk to me about their fear of pain, practically every day, all day long. To break its pervasive hold, I need to immerse myself in a conversation where pleasure can be a major part of the birth experience, of our life experience. Sheila has a gift in opening that door. Thank you, Catherine. So yeah, so she's really talking about how when you're active in birth, you're surrounded in a culture that is all about pain. It's all about the avoidance of pain. And so being able to shift that and really put your attention on pleasure and using pleasure consciously, tapping into pleasure consciously to support labor and delivery, I'm going to go into that in a little bit, is, first of all, it's really nourishing for us as birth practitioners, and it's also really powerful for our clients. So there's this sort of downward spiral that happens in labor. This very common is, there's, you start to feel the sensations, and nobody is saying that labor is not intense. It can be pretty intense, the sensations. So as you feel the sensations, that can kick up some fear. You feel fear in the body. What does your body do? Your body grips, which is resistance. When you grip, you're constricting your blood flow, you're constricting your energy flow. So your body, in order to open, to expand, has to work so much harder. So it kicks up the work it's doing, which kicks up the intensity, which kicks up the fear, which kicks up the resistance, and then just really downward spirals from there. So what can we do about that? Pillar 3, use pleasure as the most holistic birthing tool in labor and delivery. So what the heck am I talking about? So pleasure, the experience of pleasure, that could be like cuddling, that could be kissing, that could be sex, it could be orgasm. There's a wide range of pleasure. It could be dancing, it could be movement, but the physical experience of pleasure in the body stimulates oxytocin flow. Oxytocin is the governing hormone of labor and delivery. It is what the pharmaceutical industry is trying to replicate with Pitocin. So we can give ourselves our own natural Pitocin drip, our own oxytocin drip, by giving ourselves the experience of pleasure. As a birth worker, you can share a lot of strategies, tips with your clients for them to give themselves pleasure, for their partner to give them pleasure, and then there's some that you could even, bring in for your clients. And I know a lot of you already do that work with scent and touch and massage, and this is a big piece of why doula care is so effective, because a doula is essentially a pleasure tool. Excuse me. So in addition, when you have an orgasm, you also have endorphins running through your body, and endorphins are one of the most powerful natural painkillers that you'll ever experience. And I've heard it said that an orgasm has 10 times the power of some of the leading tranquilizers that you can get in the market. Got a funky little tickle. So how do you do this? How do you integrate pleasure? How do you use pleasure as the most holistic birthing tool? Excuse me. All right, so really simple. You can give yourself pleasure from the outside. And for that, just think about your 5 senses. What can you see? What can you hear? What can you touch or feel? What can you smell that can give you the experience of pleasure in your body? You can literally stroke yourself all over for the experience of pleasure. We know that nipple stimulation is a very powerful tool, clitoral stimulation. There's a wide range of pleasure. So for women that are not comfortable with using sexual tools in the birthing room, you can use things like singing and dancing. And we go really deep into all the different ways that you can access pleasure in the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training and how to share them with your clients. The other way to access pleasure in labor and delivery is by taking a sensual expansion journey. So sensual expansion is the process of like accessing the pleasure that's available to you in your body. So there is a flow of ecstasy that is always flowing through us. And it's simply a matter of like training to learn how to open it to it, feel it, and access it anytime that's available to you. Excuse me. So a sensual expansion journey is, it's a process. So it's something that we do in the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training. It's why it's a year-long training as opposed to like a 12-week training, because sensual expansion is a process to learn to connect to your body, to learn to connect to sensations, learn how to expand sensations of pleasure, learn how to open your energetic channels. It's a practice. It's a really fun practice. Now, the powerful thing about a sensual expansion journey for a birth worker is it's deeply nourishing to you. So when you learn to do this, you can hold that in your body. And if you're supporting a client with, 10-hour labor, 20-hour labor, 30-hour labor, you're able to constantly give your body the nourishment it needs so that you're not so depleted. And then you're also bringing that tone for pleasure, for ecstasy into the birthing room. We all know that the birthing field is contagious. So if somebody with fear comes into the birthing room, that can actually disrupt the birthing woman's labor because the field is so contagious. She can take that into her own body. So by embodying pleasure in your body, you're also bringing that to her. You're supporting her with her process, but you're also nourishing your own body. So pleasure supports the flow of labor and delivery, feels great, and it elevates everyone's experience. The key here is to integrate pleasure tools and training in childbirth preparation and support. I believe that, not just believe, I know that the vast majority of women are not actually preparing for childbirth. We've seen the statistics here in the US in terms of childbirth education classes, like most women just show up, hope for the best, unfortunately. So I think that right now, we're in a unique moment in time where women, like fear can be a very activating force. Anxiety can be a very activating force. It can be this thing that propels you to say, you know what, I need to prepare myself. I need to do something about this. And this is why also that women that actually do prepare for childbirth, it becomes such a transformative experience for them because they're really taking on the rite of passage in a very conscious way. I believe right now, especially if you work with expectant moms, it's our responsibility to help them prepare, even if they're not taking a formal childbirth education class. It's our responsibility to give them tools, practices to support them in preparing for birth so that they can really root deep into their own bodies and into their own birthing wisdom, feminine wisdom, primal wisdom when the time is needed. Okay, this is Katerina Baranova. She's actually a Russian birth doula and birth educator living in Guatemala. So she's very cool because she's taken ecstatic birth into the Russian-speaking world as well as the Spanish-speaking world. And here she shares, incorporating body exercises that I learned in Sheila's training into my routine with my clients helped me to see how being in the body is an important component of ecstatic birth preparations. I started to feel a sparkle in my eyes and feeling more joyful. by making our sessions shorter and giving my clients multiple points of reference for pleasure they could experience here and now and bring into the birthing room. So she's really speaking to this, like when you embody this, the flow of pleasure within your own body, it's nourishing to you. It makes you happy. It uplifts you. And there's also a transmission that happens where your clients can feel that and also receive more with less words. She says, if you're a birth practitioner that is intrigued by the idea of helping women in creating their ecstatic birth experience, I highly recommend you to start your journey by taking this training. It will transform your perspective, your connection to your body, bring you into a sisterhood with other practitioners, and give you a lot of pleasure. All right, so what do we do when the unexpected or unwanted emerge in childbirth? Right? We never know what we're going to get. What can we do? If labor and delivery doesn't go as planned, are joy and ecstasy still possible? So this brings us to pillar 4 of ecstatic birth, which is the idea of rebirthing with each birth. So what do I mean by this? When you look at the flow of labor, there's a rhythm of expansion and contraction, and overwhelmingly we give contractions a bad rap. We rename them, we numb them, we try to avoid them. But if you really look at it physiologically, contractions are the work that your body has to do in order to help that cervix dilate, in order to expand, in order to become who you need to be to birth that baby through your body. So when you look at it from this lens, that this is the rhythm of expansion and contraction, every contraction leads to an expansion, like you're left pulsating in bliss in those moments in between. And you see this rhythm in life. You see it in our lungs, like you inhale and exhale. You see it in the way flowers bloom. You see it, when you start to look at your days, you'll start to notice that you have periods when your energy is expansive and periods when your energy is contractive. And you also see this in orgasm. When a woman orgasms, what's happening? There's an expansion and contraction happening in her vulva. So when we look at the journey of a woman to become a mother, some women have contractions when they're trying to conceive in their fertility journeys. They might hit like a rough spot. Some women might have contractions in pregnancy, have really, really rough pregnancies. Some women have contractions in labor and delivery. So by a contraction, I mean, in this case, we're talking metaphorically. I'm talking about if you can think about an instance in your life where it might have been really difficult at the moment, but looking back now, you're so grateful for it. That's what I'm talking about. Like for me, my contraction around my first birth was really what I needed to go through in order to make way for the expansion and doing the work that I'm doing now. I would not have been doing any of this had I had my, that ideal first birth that I had hoped for. So really looking at, for us as birth workers, when a woman has a birthing experience that might not have been what she wanted, we can look at that as a contractive moment in her journey. And it might not be apparent right away, but if it's processed consciously, and we learn how to support women to process that consciously, if it's processed consciously with time, the gifts will emerge. So that supports us as birth workers to be able to hold space for the highest outcome no matter what, even if what we're witnessing doesn't feel like, the vision of what we were holding for that moment. So your body always is key here. Your body will show you where you need to grow, because you'll start to notice as you become more and more in tuned to the sensations of your body, you'll start to notice that there are times when your body feels like expansive and blissful and free and happy. And then you'll start to notice that there are times when your body feels tense and your energy feels contracted. And often when we're witnessing something that doesn't feel good to us, we will get into that contracted energy. So once you learn to pay attention to that, you can actually learn from your body, oh, wow, like I'm really contracted inside right now. Like what's going on? And bringing that consciousness. So your body will always show you where you need to grow. Our ability to hold space for our clients' ecstatic births, even when they're faced with unexpected or unwanted outcomes, is directly related to our commitment to our own personal rebirths. So as birth workers, and that was the title of that pillar, rebirthing with each birth, as birth workers, we are attracted to the birthing field because there's something there for us. As people, we are attracted to different things. We have desires because there's something there for us. So if we look at each of our clients' births as a part of our own rebirth, we're rebirthing with each birth, then we can really hold space for the ecstatic births. The key here is for each of us to clear out our own fears and triggers as we identify and feel them in our bodies. This is Christina Sloan, and she did some really, really deep work in the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training. I think she graduated 2 or 3 years ago. She writes, the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training is near and dear to my heart, not only because I'm passionate about transformation in childbirth in the US, but because it truly brought me healing and clarity that I will be forever grateful for. What I was not expecting to get out of the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training, coming home to my own body, knowing that I am safe, feeling love and bliss inside myself, experiencing the richness of this human experience. My senses are now experiencing things they have never experienced before. You may be wondering what this has to do with birth. Well, it's everything. Being present in your body, feeling pleasure is the thing that will allow the labor hormones to flow and will allow you to feel and trust the process. It starts with us. So she's speaking to that idea of like rebirthing with each birth, really speaking to the idea of each of us as birth practitioners, clearing our own stuff so we can be fully present and holding space, holding that ecstatic space within our own bodies. The birthing field is contagious with fear and pain, management dominating the field. That energetic tone disrupts the flow of labor. So I've alluded to pillar 5 a few times already. Pillar 5 is holding the tone for ecstatic birth, like really learning how to hold that in your body. And that is something that begins with connecting to the language of the body, which is sensation, learning to feel more pleasure at will, and disconnecting from outcomes. So this is our job as birth workers, to be able to hold the tone for ecstatic birth in our own body, regardless of what we're seeing, regardless of what we're witnessing, to be able to hold that energetically and bring that into the birthing field instead of fear or worry or anxiety or pain. We can learn to hold the tone for pleasure in our bodies and bring that energy into the birthing room and elevate the birthing field. The key to this is your relationship to your body and your essential expansion. So this is a really big part of the journey that we take in the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training. Yes, you get very concrete tools, knowledge to use in your work with your clients, but you're also taking that journey for yourself with your own body for your pleasurable expansion and nourishment. This is Jenny Braxton. She says, this training has given me so much inspiration, expansion, and release. I learned what it means to truly love myself, to reclaim my pleasure, to focus on living from a state of turn on. The knowledge I've received and embodiment I've learned has not only helped transform my life, but will also help the countless birthing women and mamas to whom I'll pass this on to. So nourishing ourselves in this way lights our light in a way that we can be so much more available to the people that we serve, to the people that we support. And Jenny has gone on to launch a school for pussy-centered living. She has expanded her business like many times over, has skyrocketed her income. And a lot of times what happens in this training is some women will deepen further into the path that they're already on, like really, showing up for birth more fiercely, more actively, more passionately, like that's really their calling. And they're able to do that with the full force of their love rather than that underlying feeling of depletion, which so often happens. And then some women are get activated in different ways. Like, yes, they're very drawn to birth, but they realize that their calling is parallel to, or, next to, or on top of in some way. And they will, from that body connected place, these downloads just come in and they'll take off a path that takes them to wonderful places. And Jenny is a beautiful example of that. I want to talk about working virtually for a minute, especially for any doulas out there, because a lot of doula work is going virtual right now, which is kind of a weird thing, right? Because a big part of being a doula is your physical presence. So when your physical is taken away, what we're seeing right now, and I'm seeing this with a lot of my clients, when that your reliance on your physical skills is taken away, you develop these energetic skills. And the women that are in my practitioner training have been able to transition seamlessly into working virtually because they have spent the past year working on their energetic skills, working on their feeling sense, working on that space. And they're finding that, you know what, I can hold the tone from behind an iPad. I can, create the birthing field where I am, and it translates. So I just really want to hold space for you all that despite the twists and turns of this moment in time, that if you are in a position where you have to work virtually, it does work. It's really, really powerful. I would invite you to check out, I've done 2 conversations to transform birth with 2 different doulas on how they did their work virtually and how they were able to hold that tone from afar. You can check those out on my YouTube page, on my Facebook page, on my blog at ecstatic-birth.pro. But the thing that we really talk about is how your presence, your tone is key, and that greater need to train both mothers and their partners. So really having them prepared for those things that, like, maybe your presence when you're there you took care of, but now that you're not there, maybe there are some things that you want to prepare the partner for to support the mom in a physical way since you're not there. A big part of working virtually is getting a really big awareness of body patterns of your client, having your client know her body, know where she constricts when she's in a contraction physically. Some women it's in their hips, some women it's in their neck. Doing the body work and getting that awareness of patterns ahead of time enables you to be able to support even if you're not there physically. And always, whether you're there virtually or not, having a wide range of tools available at your disposal is really important. Okay, so moving forward, I really invite you all to honor your births, whether they're real or metaphorical, with pleasure, to really consciously use pleasure when you're in the birthing process to support and honor your flow. I invite you to learn to feel, to support your clients in connecting with the wisdom and pleasure within. And my invitation to you, should you decide you do want to take this path, you do want to go deeper, is to consider joining me for the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training, which begins June 16th. Registration is open until June 14th for the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training, but right now we're in an early registration period. So if you sign up right now, you're saving almost 20% off, up to $500 if you pay in full. And there's also an extended payment plan available right now to make the payments affordable for you. So you can check out the info for that at Ecstaticbirth.pro. I want to give you a quick inside look into the training. So first, who is it for? This is really for, like I said, women that work in birth. If you support women anywhere on that rite of passage, from fertility to postpartum, through labor and delivery, anywhere, this is for you. If you're passionate about empowering women to have great births, if you're a leader and a way shower, bold enough to challenge the status quo, if you're eager to dive into the uncharted waters of pleasure and birth, if you're committed to deepening your connection to your body and sexuality so you can empower your clients to do the same, if you're excited to integrate ecstatic birth preparation and support into your offerings, and if you're hungry to connect with other like-minded, progressive childbirth professionals. And I would just also add, like, this is for you if right now you feel in your body like an activation happening. So what you get in the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training, this is a virtual training, so perfect for these times. It's a year-long training. We have a private member site. I think I go into this here. Yeah, you get 10 modules. Included with each module is videos, transcripts, worksheets, body practices, all accessible on demand in our private membership site. And what you can expect is really radical transformation in your relationship to your body and your feminine power in a way that is also very practical and you can bring into the birthing room and use with your clients. In addition, these are my colleagues and teachers. We learn directly from these women via an online training that I created called the Ecstatic Birth Training Sessions. So we hear from some of the leaders in women's health, in women's sexuality, in female pleasure, in birth. These are the best of the best. Ina May Gaskin, Christiane Northrup, Elena Tonetti, some of these names you might be familiar with, some of them you might not. I will say that all of my students have been blown away by the breadth and depth of wisdom that is shared in this training. And this year only, because of what's going on with the coronavirus, because of what's going on with the pandemic, I'm bringing in another group of live guest teachers to really support us in thriving through this time. We don't want to survive, we want to really thrive. So support our bodies, our optimal health, to support our triggers and our trauma patterns, to support holding the tone for our clients in the highest possible way, to support our pleasure center. So I'm bringing in some of the leading visionaries that are out there at this time to support us in this coming year in this training as well. So for graduates that complete all of the requirements of the training and are up for certification, all graduates receive a certificate of completion, including badges for your website and other marketing materials, which denotes you as an ecstatic birth practitioner. I also want to say that this training has been approved for 59 CEUs, continuing education units, through the International Childbirth Education Association, which is these credits, I believe, are also available through DONA and ACNM, and that while the CEUs are available through ICEA, a lot of other organizations honor these CEUs. So I would, if that's something that's important to you, I would just take a look and see if your certifying organization honors those CEUs. The chances are high that they do. So all my graduates are invited to retake and audit the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training in coming years, which is really fun because the training does evolve, go deeper from year to year. And also there is a constant connection to a community of women who are holding the tone for the highest outcome in birth, who are working actively to transform the culture of birth where they live. And then also a constant reminder to connect to our bodies through the body practices that I offer in this training. All graduates get an invitation to become a JV level affiliate for all my programs, meaning you get 50% commission for any clients that you refer, and you have an opportunity to make good money off of my programs, which is amazing. Continued access to the online space, listening in an online directory, and access to promotional opportunities via Ecstatic Birth marketing channels. An inside look at the curriculum. So there's 10 modules, and I don't think I have all of them laid out here yet. It's just the first module, but just to give you like the broad sweep of the module. So like the first module, we talk about the practitioner's role. Then we go into the foundations for ecstasy. Then we dive into like pleasure, the most holistic birthing tool, how to use it, how to bring pleasure from the outside, how to access pleasure from within. We dive into the shadow side of birth, fear, pain, unexpected outcomes, how to navigate those. And then in the final modules, we really talk about like how to bring it into your work with your clients and how to use everything you've learned to consciously transform the culture of birth. So what did women get? This is Deborah Samadi Woods, a graduate from last year. She says, I have gotten so much clarity, understanding that I'm responsible to nourish my soul and listen to her, to listen to my body and honor that, as opposed to doing what I think I should do based on outer expectations or a belief in something that doesn't resonate with my deepest truth. I'm speaking up more about what's possible for birth and what my truth is. And I'm also proud to report that Deborah has begun leading ecstatic birth education circles in Vancouver, where she lives, and has integrated ecstatic birth into her childbirth education courses, into her doula work, and it's a differentiator. This is really the leading edge of birth, to be able to bring this into your client work and into It's an added layer, an added bonus. It's a way to increase your rates. It's a way to differentiate yourselves from others in the field. Sharon Arazi says, I now possess the knowledge and the skills to further elevate the experience of birth for my clients, all while maintaining my bliss and pleasure through the peaks and valleys of childbirth. So important, so key. This is what prevents us from getting completely depleted while we're supporting somebody else. She also says, as a woman, I feel an even greater sense of love, passion, admiration, appreciation, and respect for myself and my body, as well as those of other women. The Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training was one of the best investments I've ever made, both personally and professionally. Woohoo! Thank you, Sharon. So to get all the details, I invite you to visit Ecstaticbirth.pro. Registration is now open. We're in the early registration period, as I said. That is, right now, it's an opportunity to register at a discounted price, and that's only available until the end of the month. This is the leading edge of birth work. In a world where there's so many factors working against us, medical, personal, societal, cultural, all these factors right now are working against this vision of the highest possible outcome in birth for a woman. For a woman to have an ecstatic birth experience, she has to go against medical systems that maybe don't support or honor the body's processes in the way that we've talked about today. She has to clear layers of like personal trauma or, you know, sexual shame, disconnect from her body. She has to shed this like widespread societal belief that childbirth is one of the most painful experiences in a woman's life. I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to a room full of women and I've said, what's the first word that comes to mind when I say childbirth? And 99%, you know, as young as like 10, 11 years old as 80 years old, 99% will say pain. So really having to work against that programming. And then culturally, let's be real, like the legacy of pain in childbirth goes back to the Bible, goes back to the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, when Eve took a bite of that apple and they were forever banished. And we're told that from this point on, women will have to suffer in birth. Now, I just want to say that that may have been a mistranslation of the Bible or not, I don't know. But that is our cultural legacy. And I'm sharing this to share how deep the roots go, that women are supposed to suffer in birth. That's how deep the roots go. So this is really the leading edge of birth work. When there are so many factors working against us, it's really key to consciously, actively clear all these layers within ourselves so that we can support our clients in doing the same for us. So pillar 6 is exactly that: sisterhood and community. Joining a growing global community of pleasure-based birth practitioners so that we can lean on each other during transition moments. So transition in birth is that moment where a woman might feel like, oh, I just can't do this anymore, right? And each of us has been there in our own journeys, you know, whether in relation to our work or other things. Like, we know that spot of when you're working so passionately, so hard on something, and then you just get to this point where like, I just can't do this anymore. And transforming the culture of birth is like that, right? It's such a big thing. It's not something any one of us can do alone. It's something that we need to do together. And so when we band together as a community, when we have each other's backs, so that when we do hit that moment of like, I just can't do this anymore, there's somebody else to say, yes, you can. Like, look at what you've done already so far. You've got this. Breathe with me. You've got this, right? Just like a doula. When we work together, we magnify our efforts for elevating childbirth. So that's the invitation to dive deeper, to join the sisterhood. Together, we can transform the culture of birth, the landscape of birth, from pain to pleasure. We're already doing this. I just want to say that it's been like 14 years since I started. And 14 years ago, when I would Google pleasure in birth, orgasmic birth, ecstatic birth, there was not much out there at all. There was not much information. And now if you do Google that, there's a ton. You can watch a million videos. You can get so much information. So this is already changing. We've had mentions of orgasmic birth in Grey's Anatomy. You see it in it's really starting to pop up in our culture and our media. This is really exciting. So we are on the verge of this, and together we can do this. Dr. Pina Elmer in Australia, she says, it's been a very natural progression to infuse all that I've learned through my ecstatic birth practitioner training into my work with clients. Not just my pregnant clients, but all my women clients. That is because at the core of ecstatic birth is the vibration of love and joy, pleasure and expansion, connection and alignment. Through Sheila's ecstatic birth practitioner training, I've developed skills to guide clients to their truth, to what feels good to them, and how to deepen their awareness of their body intelligence. This training has equipped me with a language that speaks to a woman's heart, because despite a culture of misinformation, disempowerment, and fear around birth, deep inside every woman is the knowing that birth is her superpower. I believe women are so ready to receive and awaken the confirmation of what they already know deep inside. Ecstatic birth is the way of the woman. So when we survey our graduates, I'm proud to say 94% of them say that they did broaden their skill set to include supporting women with pleasure. 97% said they would recommend the course to colleagues. 100% said the course exceeded their expectations, and 100% said they received nourishment and pleasure for themselves. So this is something I'm really, really proud of. All right, Oh Baby is a training that I've created for expectant moms. Through this pandemic period, I want all of you to be aware that this is available right now at a pay what you can rate. And for women that do register for my ecstatic birth practitioner training, I am going to give you the opportunity to empower 3 of your clients with this training. So for every woman that registers, you will also get the opportunity to gift Oh Baby to 3 people. This is one of the most potent programs I've created for expectant moms. It's just like distilled down to like the most essential elements, but with all the practices and all the activation. So that's one of the bonuses that I'm offering at this time. Another bonus is I am hosting a transitioning to a virtual world boot camp for all the women in the practitioner training. So if you register in this early registration period before June 1st, you will also get this transitioning to a virtual world boot camp for birth workers. And last but not least, I am offering an Activate Ecstasy bonus session. So for this is a one-on-one private session where you and I will work together on your body, on finding that spot within you and creating a practice specific to your body to activate ecstasy for you. So this is a bonus that I'm offering the first 5 women that register during this early registration period. I'm also offering an Activate Ecstasy bonus session. So if this is feeling like, yes, I want to do this, you can register at Ecstaticbirth.pro, check out all the details there, and choose your path for the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training. There's 2 paths. There's a general training, which is what most women do, and there's an advanced leadership path, which is only for 10 women, and that's a path where, in addition to the general training, you and I will work together one-on-one throughout the year to really cultivate and build your leadership in the field. So there's 10 spots for that. Right now, 7 are claimed. There's 3 left there, so you can check out all the details for that then. What I would suggest you do if you're feeling like, I definitely want to do the training, I don't know if advanced leadership is for me, I would recommend that you register on the regular track. And that way you have your bonuses, you're claiming your bonuses, and then we can have a conversation about whether advanced leadership is the right fit for you. And if so, we can transfer you over. Got any questions? Just email me, Sheila at ecstatic-birth.com. All right, thank you so much for making it all the way to this point with me. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the 5 pillars of ecstatic birth, and I hope this has been a source of activation and inspiration for you in this time. This is something that I have no doubt every woman is capable of opening to and holding the tone for in her body for her clients. So thank you so much for joining me, and lots of love. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. Bye, everyone.